Greetings, one and all. Welcome back to the Icing on the Skate podcast. Episode 13, I think. It's not too bad, is it? Hey! I mean, we say that every week. Literally every week, I'm like, yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
I mean, well, except for the 1 week that we missed, we've done this almost.
Yeah, because you had the audacity to go away for a week.
I will fight you. So, we've been doing this almost consecutively for 3 months now.
Yeah.
Like, that's gone so quick. That is mental.
It really has. It really has.
So, this week's been quite a slow news week, to be honest.
We've had no Nylander speculation.
Oh, well, I've made a separate video about him recently. If anybody has watched that video, thank you. You guys seem to really enjoy it. So you've got another little treat later tonight. Oh, it's I can't wait for you guys to see this one. It's so stupid. Anyway, let's talk about the Elite League. So last week we didn't actually look at the individual scores and things like that because it was such a busy 2 weeks that we looked at. But Chris, would you like to take us through the scores that took place this last week? Is your calendar right?
Yes, my calendar. I did have to change it earlier, but that's beside the point.
Gotta make sure.
It's only 10 days into the month that I changed it, but anyway. So, I'll start with just the Elite League, because we had Challenge Cup ones as well, and we'll talk about that later.
Go for it.
So, we're starting on Wednesday with a great game that was on Free Sports. The Dundee Stars 6, the Belfast Giants 4.
Was a great game.
It was a fantastic game. And also on Wednesday, a couple of other really good games, actually. Glasgow 5, Sheffield 2. And then finally, it was the Cardiff Devils 4, the Guildford Flames 3 in overtime. Moving on to Saturday.
Indeed.
And the Belfast Giants beat the Guildford Flames by 3-1. The Manchester Storm beat the Nottingham Panthers by 3-2, again in overtime. The Dundee Stars got another victory. They beat the Milton Keynes Lightning by 5-2. Whilst the Five Flyers, they have. Whilst the Five Flyers beat the Coventry Blaze by the same scoreline. And then into Sunday, the Manchester Storm beat the Glasgow Clan away from home 4-2. The Belfast Giants beat the Cardiff Devils 3-2 in a shootout. The Sheffield Steelers made the mother of all comebacks to beat the Dundee Stars 3-2 in overtime.
Yeah, against a very hot team as well.
Yeah. The Milton Keynes Lightning beat the Five Flyers 4-2. And finally, the Coventry Blaze beat the Nottingham Panthers 4-3 in overtime.
So, from all of that stuff, thank you, Chris, by the way. So, from all of that stuff, the one thing that I've noticed is that the Cardiff Devils now can't officially catch up with the Belfast Giants for first place.
They can tie it.
They can tie it, but they don't have as many regulation wins. So Belfast would win the tiebreaker. So Belfast are at the moment the legitimate and undisputed first place team in the league. Which, I mean, they have been for a while, but of course with all the games in hand and things like that, I think that's really good. Like we said, the Dundee Stars, they've played very well recently. They've gone from the bottom of the standings to 2 spots in the penultimate playoff spot, which is super impressive. It was a 5-6 game winning streak it ended up being.
Yeah.
And they lost yesterday.
Well, if you take out the Challenge Cup game, it was 6.
So it was a 6-game league winning streak.
Yeah.
And
but even that one they lost was overtime.
Yeah, they lost
so
in overtime
last
night, so they still picked up a point. They're only 2 points back from Sheffield now with a game in hand.
Yep.
But the only difference is they have 8 overtime losses already this season. Wow. Dundee are going 8, 9, and 8. That is a ridiculous record. Wow, fair play to Dundee. So they are keeping themselves in competition. There's 3 teams with 23 points now to level out the majority of the bottom of the board. So that's crazy. So, yeah, some busy league stuff, but we've had a lot of Challenge Cup action and a lot more coming this week. So, do you want to take us through the Challenge Cup games that have happened?
So, the Challenge Cup games, we've had the first leg of the quarterfinals in the Challenge Cup. So far, we had the Belfast-Dundee game that was before last week, where Belfast were 8-0 up after the first one. We'd also had that Cardiff and Glasgow 4-3 game. So
yeah.
Cardiff taking a 1-goal lead into the second leg there.
I didn't know that. Okay, fair play to Glasgow keeping it close.
Yep. The one that we did have this week was the first leg of the Manchester Storm and the Nottingham Panthers.
Yes.
Nottingham taking that one on the road by 6-1. So they've got 1 foot firmly in those semi-finals.
Yeah.
The one that hasn't had anything yet is Sheffield and Guildford, who played their first leg this Wednesday.
Okay. So yeah, I watched that Nottingham Manchester game. The commentary from the Manchester Storm people, I'm not a fan. I've just got to say that. I was talking to Max about it because we were both watching the webcast at the same time, and we were both bringing up the same points on what they were talking about and going, I mean, like, it was one of those situations where, of course, it's a team. It's the fans of a team, so of course they have bias towards the home team. And it wasn't as if like they were basically saying their team's the best and better than everyone, because I mean they're not. But it was more of a case of like anything that Nottingham did well, they were basically saying, "Oh, it was lucky." It's like, no, it's not.
Right?
They played really well, and they're like, "Oh, we're only a bounce or two. We haven't really had any lucky bounces tonight." I mean, you did. You just had a solid goaltending performance of Michael Garnett to go up against. So it was just one of those things. It's very nitpicky, obviously, but I'm not a fan of the Storm TV commentators. I'll watch their stuff, but I think I might watch it on mute from now on. Anyway, so moving on. So yeah, that's the Challenge Cup stuff. So do you want to just run through the games that we've got coming up this week? Because a lot of them are Challenge Cup games, and it might be important to know.
Well, I'll start with the Challenge Cup then, because it's easier to split the two. So we have 4 Challenge Cup games this week. We've got the second leg of Belfast against Dundee, where Dundee need to win by 9 goals.
Could you imagine? That would be the comeback of the season.
What do you reckon the betting odds are on that?
Probably like, I reckon like Belfast have like a 99% win probability.
According to William Hill, Dundee to win is 11-2.
Wow.
And Belfast to win is 3-10.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Then we've got the second leg of Nottingham against Manchester. Again, Manchester need to win by 6 goals to go through to the semi-finals.
Which Nottingham had a pretty rough weekend, so
They did.
They might be able to put a couple of goals past them, but a 6-goal deficit is, of course, a very big mountain.
You'd like to think that in their own stadium, the Panthers would be able to defend a 6-goal lead, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but then again, you remember the teddy bear toss, and
don't even. Just every single other team are starting to do their teddy bear toss, and I've been so tempted to tweet on every single one. Well, at least if you score, it'll work properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Then we've got the first leg of Sheffield against Guildford on Wednesday, and then on Friday, the second leg of Cardiff against Glasgow, which is the quarter-final that's quite close at the moment. Cardiff just taking a 1-goal lead, but they are going into their own barn.
Could you imagine if Glasgow took out Cardiff?
Oh, that would be so good.
That would be that would be quite shocking, I've got to be honest. Like, the fact that they've only got it a 1-goal differential going into the second leg is quite impressive. Considering, like, the rest of them, it's an 8-goal differential and a 5-goal differential and one that hasn't actually been played yet. One question: Sheffield versus Guildford. That's on Wednesday, right? And is that at Sheffield or at Guildford?
It will be at Guildford because Sheffield got the draw. So it's at Sheffield. Sorry, my mistake.
Okay, I might watch that one then. Might get some TV on that one.
It's at Sheffield on Wednesday, and then it's at Guildford and then it's at Guildford the following week.
Yes, because Guildford were the. Am I saying it right? Guildford were they the top 4? Was it Sheffield?
I can't remember.
Oh, who cares? Doesn't matter. They're playing.
It doesn't matter. Guildford are playing Sheffield.
Yeah, that's all we need to know. So, do you want to talk about the other games this week? Just while we're here.
Of course, less in the league, obviously, because this is the Challenge Cup games going on. So Friday night, it's Nottingham against Dundee. Saturday, it's Glasgow, Belfast, Manchester, Cardiff, and Sheffield, Coventry, and Milton Keynes, Dundee, and 5 Guildford. And then on Sunday, Nottingham, Guildford, Coventry, Dundee, and Manchester, Belfast.
Okay, interesting. Thank you, Chris. So, what are you thinking about the league at the moment? So, we're about roughly 26 games into the season, which is roughly
almost halfway.
Yeah, almost halfway into the season. We're starting to see like we say every week, we're starting to see a bit more of a gap in terms of the different teams. Usually when I look, because I'm looking at the standings right now, usually we see a team that's on like a 7-game winning streak or a 5-game winning streak. The highest at the moment is only 2. Belfast and the Manchester Storm both have 2-game winning streaks. Quite a lot of teams have 2-game losing streaks, like the Panthers, the Flames. Oh, okay, that's it. And then the rest of them are just 1 wins or 1 loss. So, how is there anything? I guess the question I want to ask is this going to be what the table looks like at the end, or do you think there's a chance for a surprise team to jump up or go further down the standings? Of course, there's always that chance, but
yeah,
what are your thoughts about it so far?
It's been a really good season first half. I mean, I can remember back in October we were going, well, we need to let it pan out a bit and see what's going to happen, and now that has. I think we're probably not far off. I think teams are going to move about.
Yeah.
But I would say that you've probably got a top half and a bottom half.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So Belfast down to Sheffield, I think they're going to be your top 6, but in a different order.
Yeah.
And then you've got, I mean, Milton Keynes need to change quite a bit, and that's not helped with their goaltender over this week. But I think with Dundee on 24 and then 3 teams on 23, and those games in hand that Glasgow and Coventry have got, that could be very interesting battle towards the end of the season, especially when you look at the fixtures and when they've got to really kick it up and just try and scrape into those playoff spots. I mean, especially because if I'm just looking at Dundee as an example, they've got Glasgow on the final game, they've got Manchester the game before that, then they've got Coventry, they've got Manchester again, then Manchester 2 games before that. So they're playing each other around that end of the season as well. So that has that's going to be almost like a mini tournament within the league.
Definitely. Like, for example, if one team takes all the victories against that team, that you're going to see a bigger gap between the 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, Glasgow arguably need to go on a run. I know we're looking a long way ahead, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Glasgow's 7-game run-in. Belfast away, Belfast at home, Sheffield away, Nottingham away, Guildford away, Cardiff away, Guildford at home.
Wow. So they've got a very, very tough matchup.
So Glasgow have got to get it done early, because I can't see them picking many points up towards the end of the season.
Especially against Belfast.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Belfast, will be hoping to be having a party in those games with the league title.
So I would go as far to say that, I mean, the top 4 teams in the standings at the moment have really run away with it at the moment.
They have a bit.
I mean, if you take a look, Guildford at 5th down to Manchester at 10th, the gap is 4 points. There's only 4 point difference there. So middle of the table, still absolutely everything to play for. If you go from Guildford to top place Belfast, they've both played the same amount of games. Guildford have 2 games in hand, but the difference is 13 points.
Yeah, so they could go to 31, but even that's 9 points, and that's 5 games. So
exactly. So we're talking about a huge gap starting to open from the top teams. I mean, from Belfast to Fife, the difference is 8 points. So we're even within the top teams at the moment, we're seeing a gap. Of course, as the season goes on and as the better teams play better hockey and win those games compared to other teams, they're going to go on big runs like this and make that difference. Another interesting thing to note, 4 teams have scored over 90 goals so far this season, and they're all the top 4 teams.
Yep.
Belfast have only allowed 55 goals. Belfast are playing incredibly well at the moment. I would not be surprised if they took more than 1 trophy home this season.
Oh, yeah, not at all. Yeah.
They've got a very solid squad up there. I mean, they've almost hit the 100 goal plateau, which is probably going to be quickly followed by Cardiff. But this is a really, really interesting league. Like we've said, this is just looking at the standings shows that this is a pure example of the league being as competitive as ever.
I mean, look at the form over the last 10 games.
Yeah.
Belfast have scored 40 goals in those 10 games. That's 4 a game.
Yeah.
And conceded 21. So that's if you're winning every game on average 4-2, and they've taken 16 points. That's 8 wins from the last 10.
Pretty convincing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the look at the standings, the upcoming games, all of that stuff. So we're going to move on to some of the news that took place, and I very much imagine there's going to be a lot more of this kind of news as we move into the new year and the middle of the road teams start to want to make some moves. We're talking about players. Different players have been moving places. So I've got an article that was written on December 4th, 2018 at 6 o'clock, just in case you're wondering. There's a couple of players moving around here, so bear with me. We begin with the Coventry Blaze. The Coventry Blaze have decided to re-sign Czech netminder Miroslav Kopriva on the same day that 2 other players left the Coventry Blaze team. So the 34-year-old goaltender Kopriva, he comes back to replace Mika Weichman. They didn't even spell his name right in this article. They spelled it Weichman. It's W-I-I-K-M-A-N, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they spelled it W-I-C-K-M-A-N.
Oh dear.
So there you go. They really should proofread these. Mika Weichman was released earlier that day on December 4th, and it was they also mentioned it on the Free Sports broadcast. That's how I first heard about it. And also their forward Kellen Ainsworth was released as he wanted to pursue an opportunity in Denmark with the defending champion Aalborg Pirates. So the Blaze dropped 2 players. They've brought in Kopriva to replace Weichman, and they've also brought in another player, which we can talk about in a moment. The head coach of the Coventry Blaze, Danny Stewart, has said, "Getting Miro back is vital to help us get through a rough patch. We know what he brings, and he knows better what to expect second time around. He'll get on the ice a couple of times in preparation for a big weekend for us," which of course was this last weekend, which included an overtime win against the Nottingham Panthers. So, also...
Don't get me started on that.
Yeah, okay. So essentially 2 players have left the Blaze. Another player has left the Cardiff Devils. This one was a little bit more publicised from what I could see. The Cardiff Devils announced that Justin Farina... Is it Farina? Is that how you pronounce it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Justin Farina has left the Cardiff Devils. Managing Director Todd Kelman was quoted saying, "This came as a big shock to us. Farina has been a big part of our team since he arrived ahead of the 17-18 season. He played a massive role in our success last season and was hugely popular with our fan base." Now, from what I have seen, it's due to personal reasons. I can't quite remember if it was family reasons or just personal reasons. So, yes. Very interesting coming out of that. Of course, like Todd Kelman said, a popular player within the fan base. It kind of looked like there was no reason for him to leave. He was playing quite well. The Cardiff Devils are, of course, doing very well as a team. So it seems very strange that this kind of came out of the blue. And it does, based on what Todd Kelman has said and what the fans have said, this came very much out of the blue for them. Nobody expected this at all, which is a real shame, actually. I think it's sad that Farina's had to go, but of course he has his reasons, as I would imagine, and we wish him all the best. And before I bring in Chris to give his thoughts, so the Coventry Blaze, they got rid of Weichman, and they also got rid of what was his name, Kellen Ainsworth, in order to sort of make up for the Ainsworth transaction, as you might call it. They decided to bring in Swedish forward Tom Flodqvist, which is a great name, into their Elite League lineup. The 28-year-old arrives in the UK from his hometown club Södertälje, but probably not, of the Allsvenskan, where he spent the last 2 years and also his junior career. He will remain interestingly, apparently he will remain contracted to his previous team, but the club have agreed to loan the player to the Blaze for the remainder of the season. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. He's played over 50 games at Sweden's elite level, the SHL, and 200 games in the Allsvenskan, which is the second tier in Sweden. He's contributed 55 points, and he also played at Division 1, scoring well over a point per game with 142 in 120. So yeah, he's a 5'10" guy. He's a smaller guy, but he's more of a smaller shooting guy. I mean, you have plenty of them in hockey nowadays. So yeah, this is very interesting. So 2 players go out of the Blaze, 2 players come in. One, of course, is more known than the other, and Justin Farina has left the Cardiff Devils. So, Chris, pick a player that you want to talk about. Go for it.
I'll talk about Flodqvist because I've got his stats up.
Go for it.
Now, the thing that is, I won't say concerning me. That's probably not the right word, but he's left there. He's come here on loan, presumably because he's not performing well enough for them. Otherwise, obviously, they keep him.
Or there's not
Now,
a roster spot for him.
or there is that. But I mean, if you look at his stats this year, he's only got 2 points from 21 games.
Okay.
Now, and the season before that, he only got 16 points from 52 games.
So
he does very well in Division 1, but not in the Allsvenskan. And I'm wondering if, I mean, obviously it's difficult to compare the league quality, but whether he needs to be, he's almost like, very good for Swedish Division 3 and not really good enough for Swedish Division 2. How does that translate into the Elite League? I guess we'll have to kind of see with that, but...
So the one thing that I would like to bring up, he's, did I say he was 23?
You did, yeah.
Yeah, so he's
28.
23. What?
According to Elite Prospects, he's 28.
Oh, is he?
He was born in 1990.
Okay, I'm going to double check this. I'm going to double check what the Coventry Blaze said, because I could have sworn I said 23. But no, you're right. He is 28. So that kind of completely destroys the argument I was going to make, actually. But no, this is a good point. He's 28 years old. Typically, hockey players hit the prime of their career between 27 and 29 years old. That's kind of the best years you're going to get out of them, because they've either spent a long time playing hockey and have all the IQ or the best IQ they're going to have, and their body's in the best prime position in order to compete, and it's the best physical shape they're ever going to be in as a hockey player. So he's right in the prime of his career at the moment. Like, he couldn't get any primer in his career than he is right now in terms of his athletic ability, and he's struggling to play in the Allsvenskan. Which, give credit where credit is due, the Swedish hockey leagues, like, whilst they're not the NHL or the KHL, they are a very good set of leagues. Like, you get a lot of very solid players coming out of the SHL and the Allsvenskan. I mean, case in point, Elias Pettersson, 5-point night last night for the Vancouver Canucks. You get some solid Swedish players out there. Like, the amount of Swedish players in the NHL is astounding. But like you said, I think it's very interesting to see where he fits in the Elite League this season, where he fits with Coventry, because essentially, if you want to take it on face value, he's coming to replace Kellen Ainsworth. Do you have Kellen Ainsworth's stats there? Because that would be really interesting to know.
I can get them. Yeah. One thing I'm also looking at is, okay, yes, it's not been, we've not done well, but if you look at Elite League teams against SHL teams in like the Champions Hockey League, are we really like 2 divisions below them? I would argue not.
Well, I think that's purely because they have a better system in place. Yeah,
but what I mean.
Sorry.
Is,
yeah.
What I mean is we're not going toe to toe with them because we're losing the games, but we're not getting blown out 8-9-0. So I'm wondering whether he would actually. I'm wondering if we're more sort of level with.
The Allsvenskan?
Yeah, and he's not performing there.
And maybe this is just a case of he needs a change of scenery.
Yeah,
maybe in a where he can make his own identity as a hockey player somewhere else.
Yeah. Ainsworth,
go for it.
In 22 games for the Blaze, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points.
Wow, okay.
He's played 1 game for the Pirates in Denmark and got an assist in that game, so he's a point per game for them.
So, yeah, those are some pretty big shoes to fill.
I'm not convinced, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think if Flodkvist is a 1-for-1 replacing Ainsworth and expecting to produce like Ainsworth does, I mean, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt at the moment because he hasn't suited up for many games.
Well, quite.
We'll see how he does, but I'm not expecting him to, given the fact that he's struggled with some of the lower divisions of the Swedish Hockey League.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's not necessarily the signing that Coventry needed, particularly when, as we said at the start of the podcast, I mean, they're on goal difference outside the playoffs now. They need to be strengthening to get into that bottom half. And on face value, at least, as I say, we've got to wait to see how he plays in a Blaze jersey. But on the face of it, it almost seems as though they've gone backwards.
Yeah. Now, the only other sort of scenario I could see with this is Ainsworth leaves. They figure one of their other bottom 6 guys could suit up into the top 6, and then Flodkvist replaces that guy potentially. Maybe there's a guy that has shown a lot of potential. I don't know a huge amount about the Coventry Blaze team in depth. I've watched a few of their games, but nothing.
He was on -7 for his plus-minus as well so far this season.
Well, so there you go. So yeah, it could be a case of they've seen a guy, maybe one of the younger guys that's been producing and been playing very well for them, figures that they deserve the chance or could thrive more and produce more if they play in a in a top 6 role with some of their better, more talented players, and then they slot Flodkvist in as a bottom 6 forward, a penalty killer, whatever they want to do. So we'll have to see. I'd be very interested over this next week or so to see the line combinations of Coventry, where they actually play
That'd be true, yeah.
So, because that would be reflective of the sort of production we would expect, or the type of player he is. He might have only got these many points because he is a more defensively minded forward.
That is true. That is true. So but he was still getting he was getting the good points in Division 1.
Yeah, true.
So unless he's being used differently in the Allsvensson, but we don't know.
But remember, I assume Division 1 means juniors, right?
No, it's like the 3rd tier, isn't it?
Oh, okay, all right. Is there any other of those changes of personnel that you'd like to talk about? So we covered Flodkvist. What about Farina? Is there anything you want to say on Farina?
I mean, I've not really been covering him that much. I mean, the other one that stood out for me was Wiekman.
Yeah.
Because I know what a brilliant goaltender he is from his time in Nottingham. And I'm surprised that he's not. I mean, I know Milton Keynes are bottom of the league, but
he played for Coventry this season, just so you know.
Coventry, he did, didn't he?
He played
moved.
for MK last season.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
I'm surprised they've let him go as well because it seems like they're going backwards.
I've got to be honest, I'm not, and the reason is because after last season he wanted to retire anyway.
That is true, actually. Yeah, I forgot that.
He was done at the end of last season. Then Coventry, Danny Stewart came and made him this offer. He said, okay, yeah, I'm going to come out of retirement and give it a go. And the problem is, Wiekman, he's had too many injuries this season. He's been bitten by the injury bug really badly. So when they've seen the chance that Kopriva can come back... Oh, bye, Chris. So when they've seen the chance that Kopriva can come back... so he's getting broken out. Yeah, so Chris is getting broken into by the looks of it. He's not, but he's probably had to deal with something. So I'm talking to you guys now. Hello. So the what I expect is with Kopriva, either they went to Kopriva and said, hi Chris, and they said that they wanted him back, or he said he wanted to come back. I don't know which one was the situation there, but I could very much expect that Wiekman, he was kind of maybe contemplating it, or Coventry went to him like, if you want to back out and call it a day, we don't mind. However, the interesting thing was, which Chris sent to me, is that Wiekman has now moved to Amiens of the French league. So he's not done with his career. He's decided he's not retiring at the moment. He's going to carry on for the rest of the season at least. So I would very much imagine this was a case of the Coventry Blaze going to him and going, unfortunately, due to injuries and that, this hasn't quite worked out. I think we should call it a day. And he's probably gone, yeah, you're probably right, to be fair. And then he's moved to this other league and Kopriva's come back. But it was just a real victim of the injury bug this season.
Yeah, I mean, in all fairness, he hasn't been brilliant for the Blaze this season. He's had a 4.2 goals against average.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of he's been injured, he hasn't played very well when he's been in the lineup, and the team in front of him hasn't played very well when he's been in the lineup.
Yeah.
So
he's been facing more shots than he was when he was in Nottingham, for example.
Exactly. So it's a case of it just wasn't the right fit, which happens in hockey. Players go to teams and it doesn't work out. You'd rather it be somebody that you're wanting to keep for a season or so than somebody you're wanting to keep long term or have signed for long term. So yeah, I think that's very interesting. Of course, we wish Wiekman the best of luck in France. Hopefully he does well. So that's there's one more thing I want to talk about before we move on to our little debate topic of the week. This is, of course, Player of the Month. We talk about it every month. So the Player of the Month was between 2 Belfast Giants, 1 Glasgow Clan member, and 1 Dundee Star. So the different players that you could vote for, just so you know, the player of the month is done by voting on Twitter or Facebook, and all of the votes are piled together, and the most votes gets the victory. So, the 4 people you could vote for, I think were all of the players of the week, which I think is a very good way to do it. You compile all the players of the week and then go player of the month. Here you go. So, Jordan Cowney of the Dundee Stars was one of the votes. Tyler Beskoranawi. How do you say that name?
Beskoranawi.
Beskoranawi? Okay. Tyler Beskoranawi of the Belfast Giants. That's their goaltender, right? Yeah, okay. Matt Becker of the Glasgow Clan and Blair Riley of the Belfast Giants. So, those were the 4 people you could vote for, and the votes were as follows. Cowney received 38.38% of the vote in... How did it say how many votes there were?
2,984.
2,984 votes. 38.38% goes to Jordan Cowney. So he is the player of the month for November. Congratulations, Jordan Cowney. Then Bessa Karouni, or however you call it, 29.58% of the vote. Matt Becker got 23.87% of the vote. And then poor Blair Riley, only 8.17% of the vote. So, it was very close for the top 3, and then Blair Riley just kind of like, I'm here too, guys. So, very interesting. So, Jordan Cowney, the 23-year-old hometown boy, helped his side to end their losing streak with 2 goals as the Stars recorded back-to-back wins over the Five Flyers. He also added another goal and assist over the month, and has been in decent form since too. Another pair of assists, as the Stars are now, well, at the time of this writing, were unbeaten in 5 straight games. He's playing in only his 2nd full season in the Elite League. Last season, he recorded 24 points in 50 Elite League games. This year, he's just over halfway to repeating that total with 13 in 23. So, not a very high amount of points for a player of the month, personally. But then again, he's obviously been a very key factor to that team going on such a successful run recently. So, yeah. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've sung the praises of Dundee earlier on in the podcast. I think that, and he's been good for them. I think the thing with Dundee, I mean, as you said, not a high number of points. I think that's because the games that Dundee have been winning, they've spread the points production about. They're not reliant on one player.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, I get that it's come from Dundee, because that does make sense with the run that they've been on.
Yeah. I definitely could have seen the Belfast Giants goaltender getting it too. Like people have said, and like we've seen, he's been playing almost lights out quite a lot of the time. Yeah. So he's been playing quite well. So Cowney joins Gleeson Fournier and Shane Owen as the 3rd player of the month. The other 2 being October and September respectively. So that's all in terms of the news from the Elite League. Like we said, a very slow news week this week. Nothing much really going on. Everybody's just been getting on.
Stupid penalties.
Yep, stupid penalties by the Nottingham Panthers getting their compulsory one. Too many men penalty.
Too many men on the ice.
Yep,
penalty for the week. And then
every
of course,
week, and they usually always score on it. So
yeah, take the penalty when you're tied 17 seconds before the end of the game. Why don't you? And then concede in short-handed in overtime.
Yeah, and considering the Panthers were 2-0 up in that game as well.
So shout out to Steelers though. 2-0 down with 1 minute and 6 to go.
Yeah,
and in overtime 3-2.
Yeah, that's why you play until the final buzzer, Dundee. So I'll play under review our little debate topic today. So we covered something very similar to this a couple of weeks ago. I can't quite remember what the team was, unfortunately, because it's been a little while. Do you remember what the team was that we covered with this topic?
Was it Streatham? No.
Was it was it Basingstoke?
Yeah, it may have been Basingstoke.
So let me give you the long and short of it. So a couple of weeks ago we covered a team that we can't remember that was going through some financial problems, and unfortunately they've had to resort to essentially asking their fans to help pay to keep the team running for the remainder of the season. And I remember we very much talked about, at the time, the Invicta Dynamos. That's it. Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much. I don't know where we got those other 2 from.
I don't know.
So the Invicta Dynamos had this situation take place, and they managed to raise... I'm pretty sure they managed to raise a good amount of money. And we very much talked about how they might be setting a bit of a bad precedent for teams essentially asking their fans to help bail them out of any financial problems that they have, and would we see any other teams do this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there is another team that's done this. So the Milton Keynes Thunder, which is the NIHL team associated with the Milton Keynes Lightning, they seem to get on quite well. It's quite good. They have also started a crowdfunder, which is different to the last time, and it's called #SaveMKThunder. So I'll just read out what they've written here. This is an attempt to reach out to the community and allow them to ultimately choose the fate of MK Thunder. We've tried our best to compete in a league which pushes us beyond our financial capabilities. The money we are hoping to raise will enable us to break even for the rest of the season. This is truly our make or break time. Despite not winning a lot of games, our players always give their best and also want something to be done to save their team. They want to keep fighting for the goals on and off the ice. Our supporters club have offered up a huge collection of prizes to be raffled to anyone who pledges £10 or more. The lowest default one, by the way, is £10, just so you know. We will also be adding Thunder-related items to the prizes. If we haven't raised the money by the 16th of December, all pledges will be refunded and the team will sadly be no more. #SaveMKThunder. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of how much they've raised and how much longer they've got left and everything like that, the one thing I really hate about these crowdfunding campaigns from teams, I'm just going to put it out there now, is when they say, this is the community's chance to save their team. I'm sorry, but it's not the community's responsibility to pay for the team's financial woes. Should they? Or does that mean that they should, that if they want to contribute something to try and help the team, that they shouldn't? No. If you want to give money to help keep a team afloat, that's completely your decision, and I respect you either way for it. Like, it's up to you. It's your money. Do whatever the bloody hell you want with it, as long as it isn't hurting anybody else. However, I don't like it when these, and it was quite similar with the Invicta Dynamos as well. I don't have an exact quote, but when they say, this is the chance for you guys to keep the team that you love afloat. It's so manipulative. It's so emotionally manipulative of how you're trying to squeeze money out of your fans. Why don't you just say, put it simply, don't do any of the emotional manipulation. Just say, we don't have any money anymore. If you'd like to help us out, we would really greatly appreciate it, as it would help the team run. Just do something like that. Be honest. Don't do this whole, you have the chance to save us, only you can do it, otherwise we'll be no more, and no one will ever see us ever again. It's like, don't go for the sob story. This isn't X Factor. Like, come on. Like, be honest with your fans. If you're wanting them to shift at least £10, there's 4 different default amounts that you can donate. £10, £20, £30 and £50. If you're wanting somebody to go as far to donate £50 in order to keep your team afloat, which is the equivalent, I would assume, of like half a dozen home games, tickets to half a dozen games to go and see this team, and you're not really getting a huge amount in return, don't manipulate people. Like, it's not right. I know that's not really what I want to talk about here, but it's just something I wanted to bring up as I was reading it. Like, I hate it when they advertise stuff like this and put that whole, like, only you can save us. Empty your wallet now, empty your pockets and give us everything because it's up to you. It's your responsibility to save us. It's not. It's not the fans' responsibility to pay for the club. Like, you owe... If fans are paying for tickets, they've done their duty. They've paid for the ticket, they're turning up. If they want to give anything extra, that's up to them. That's absolutely their prerogative, but they don't have to. They should never feel like they have to in order to help a team. Anyway, Chris, what do you think? Sorry, I just wanted to get that out there. Yeah,
now, obviously working in the NIHL and commentating on the NIHL, obviously I know a bit of the deal behind all this. My problem with crowdfunding is a bit similar to yours, is that the fans are already paying tickets and buying merchandise.
Yeah.
And it's to get them to pay more on top of what they're already paying, which, okay, in the NIHL isn't a lot, but I mean, is this like the thin end of the wedge, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you're, even with like football and stuff, you've got, your tickets are like 30 odd quid. I mean, you wouldn't get in the Elite League. I mean, they're, 20 quid each, and, the jerseys are what, 70 quid, something like that. So
that's pretty exact, actually.
Yeah. So
So for the NIHL, just a bit of context, Chris. How much is a ticket to, like, for example, a Lions game?
A Lions game is a fiver for adults.
So is that similar?
That's the cheapest in the league. You're normally looking at about 8 to 10.
So 8 to 10 quid. So let's take that 8 to 10 quid. If you gave 50 quid to help support this team, you're essentially giving up the same amount of money as it would cost to go and see 5 of their games at home.
Yeah.
How many games do the NIHL play in a season?
Well, in the north, we've got 36 at 18 home games, plus more if you're in the cups, but the Lions aren't. So we have 18.
18 home games. Just under a third of the home games that season, you're paying to try and help this team stay afloat. Which, like I've said, if you want to do that, that's absolutely fine. Like, if you guys want me to put the link so you can check out the crowdfunder in the chat, I'm more than willing to do so. Like, what you do with your money is absolutely fine. I'm not criticizing the fans. I want to make that absolutely clear. The fans, if you want to support it, if you don't, that's completely up to you. It's the team that I'm annoyed with here. It's the team where they say, like, for example, they have on here, we have until the 16th of December to prevent our wonderful club from folding. That's your responsibility. Like,
that's this Sunday as well, and it was only announced earlier on. Was it about Friday or something? It was announced
less than a week ago.
Now, to me, they would have known that it was an issue long before Sunday.
Yep. Interesting point. Crocky Gamer, hello, how you doing, bud? He mentioned in the chat actually. At the start of this season, the league asked every single team if they are able to stay in the league, and all teams in Division 1 North said yes, they can. I assume the MK Thunder play in Division.
They're
1
in the south,
right?
Yeah.
I would assume they'd do the same thing, right?
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Double check. Do you have the adequate facilities? Do you have enough money to keep yourself going for the season?
Yeah, so what happened in the north was that D-side, who had been pretty awful in the 17-18 season, they had 2 teams. They had one in Division 1 North and one in Division 2 North.
Yeah.
They have merged into one team in Division 2 North.
Right.
And then the Sutton Sting, who had the opportunity to get promoted, they kind of went, do you want to get promoted? Can you afford to get promoted? All the rest of it. And they said yes, they've got promoted, and all fair play to them. They're really holding their own there. I think they're 7th. So.
Oh, nice. Fair play to them. But yeah, Crocky also mentions the Division 1 South teams also were asked this question and said yes, but yet 3 clubs might not be participating next season. So don't lie.
No, I mean they were asked this. I mean, the season finished in March. They started doing all the fixtures and stuff June, July time.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there are, some variables in this if the rink rent went up after that and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the rest fees have gone up. I know that and what have you. But, I mean, they're not thousands and thousands of pounds in variables. I mean, the rest fees aren't anyway.
I think the thing that I find very interesting about this scenario, as opposed to the Invicta Dynamos that we covered a couple of weeks ago, the MK Thunder, they're the second team in Milton Keynes. Like, you've already got a team in Milton Keynes in the Lightning, who, I mean, no offence to them, they don't do very well in attendance themselves. So, like, they're not exactly one of the front runners in attendance of teams in the Elite League. They get a solid amount of fans in, but compared to other teams in the league, it's still very much low. So, whilst it might be, you could argue sort of the development of younger players and giving sort of British players the chance to come through the system and get playing time and then make it to the Elite League. If this team folded, which is a possibility if they don't make their money. We'll talk about the money in a moment.
I was going to say, they haven't got long, have they?
Yeah, I've got the exact amount of money that they've raised so far here. We'll talk about it in a moment. But I don't have anything against the MK Thunder, but would this be such a bad thing if the Milton Keynes Thunder folded? Of course, it might have problems with the realigning of leagues and stuff, but in terms of hockey in Milton Keynes, surely it just takes out one team of competition, and then hopefully that might mean a slight uptick in the amount of people that go and watch the team in the Elite League. The Lightning, you know?
No, I mean, I don't really agree with that. Mainly because, of course, I'm in the exact same situation.
Yeah.
The Lions,
But
are
but
in the
but the
same.
difference is the Lions aren't having financial problems.
Well, no.
See,
I
see,
mean, I know it
see.
is tough.
That's the thing I want to mention. Like the Lions, they're doing, like you've mentioned many times on this podcast, and of course you're affiliated with the Lions, so you might have some sort of bias. I'm not personally, so I can say whatever I want. The Lions, like you said in many podcasts previously, they know exactly why they're there. They're there
Yeah.
to give younger players that want to essentially be the best hockey players they can and make the Elite League one day. They're essentially a farm team. They're a farm
In
team
a sense,
for,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
Nottingham. They play as many young players as possible. Like we've mentioned before, they're not exactly the best team in the standings. They still haven't got a point yet this season. So they're not doing very well in terms of the standings. But they're giving younger players that are trying to make a name for themselves ice time and giving them that opportunity to improve their game as much as possible. So
Yeah.
there's that. And of course, whilst they're not as publicised as they could be in Nottingham, from as far as I'm aware and as far as you're aware, because you haven't told me anything about it, they're not facing any major financial problems. So
No, they're not.
they've
No.
got that for them, whereas the MK Thunder don't. So
Yeah, I mean-
I kind of feel like it's a different scenario.
Yeah, to give some who might not know some sort of indication on league finances as a whole, not the Lions. To
Yeah.
put a team through the NIHL Division 1, you're looking at around 30,000 a year. And that is player registration, which is about 150 quid a player, rink hire, referee charges, stewarding, equipment, buses, and all of that. You're looking at about 30,000.
Yeah.
And when you're getting, 100 people on the gate paying a tenner each, and you're only getting 1,018 games,
Yeah.
and that's 18,000 from your 30,000. You're 12,000 in a hole.
Yeah. And
So it is really difficult.
oh yeah, like it's an expensive sport to cover, which is why I'm surprised we've had so many teams last so long. To be honest, in this country, like we've mentioned before, it's not a cheap sport to be able to uphold, and I'm not surprised that teams have had financial problems like these. The thing is, I'll say it again, this is setting such a dangerous precedent because now 2 teams have done it. What's to stop a 3rd team from doing it, and a 4th team, and a 5th team, and it could well get to the point, like you say, if prices do go up after they've asked the teams,
Yeah.
have you got enough money in order to sort yourselves out for the season, and they say yes because they think they do. We could well have a situation where half, 3/4, even going into next season, all the teams next season might be in the same scenario. I mean,
Yeah.
they might not be, but
The concern is that, and this bit is a guess, but it makes logical sense, that the teams will rent the rink in a lump sum at the start of the year. We're playing so many games.
Yeah.
Here you are. And if they get further in the cup, they'll add some on.
yeah,
If a team goes and all of a sudden you've lost 2 home games, you're losing 2 lots of income from the fans and what have you those games as well, which
Exactly.
makes it even harder for you.
yeah, exactly. It has a knock-on effect on everything else. So, just to let you guys know that are listening, the MK Thunder set a target of £10,000 to raise by the 16th of December. We are just under a week away from the deadline, supposedly. Although, something I find very interesting, their fundraiser, 24 days left it has on the fundraiser,
Yeah.
which I find quite strange. And also, the project is using flexible funding and will receive all pledges made by January 4th, 2019 at 11:52 a.m. So, like they say, they do say, if we haven't raised the money by the 16th of December, all pledges will be refunded and the team will sadly be no more. They're going until the 4th of January in terms of this funding goal, and by that time, because it's flexible funding, they'll take all that money into their account. It's because, for those of you who don't know, places like GoFundMe and Kickstarter and all of those stuff, they have 2 different options. They have like a hard funding cap. So, for example, if you don't make £10,000, then you don't get any of the money and everybody gets refunded. If you go flexible, essentially whatever money you get given, you keep, which is what they've gone for here. So I don't know why they've said the 16th of December, we'll refund all the money. Why not just set it at a hard funding goal then? There's something that doesn't seem right there, you know? Why would they make it more difficult for themselves and have to go through and refund? Now at the point of 253 people have pledged to this. So I find it quite interesting that they've essentially made more work for themselves. They're going to have to go and individually refund over 250 people because of this flexible funding, if they're going to stick to what they said, as opposed to just going, nope, we've got the hard £10,000 target. If we don't make it, then everybody gets their money back anyway, and it's no less work for us. There's just something doesn't seem right about that. I don't know what you think, Chris, but there's something seems dodgy here. I mean, if they'd said, if we don't get the money by this date, the team will sadly be no more. However, we'll put this into doing something else for the team, like as one last hurrah, do like one last celebration or something. Great. But to me, it kind of sounds like they're going to keep the money, regardless of how much they make.
Yeah.
Which is fine if they say that's what they're doing, which is not what they've said. So, for example, if they made a court, like this could be taken in court. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I have studied law to an extent. They specifically say, if we haven't raised the money by the 16th of December, all pledges will be refunded and the team will sadly be no more. So if they only make £9,999, legally they should have to repay all that money because they didn't make the target. So I don't know. It sucks that another team's in this situation. I want to make that abundantly clear. Like, I hate it that another hockey team is facing financial struggle. It's something that you don't want to see, especially because it's such a low-key sport in this country, and both of us here definitely want to see the sport grow.
Of course.
Because that's important, because it's my favourite sport, and I think it's one of Chris's, if not his favourite sport.
Yeah.
So it's very important, and we love watching it. But I just don't like this precedent that's been set by the Invicta Dynamos and the MK Thunder. I'm sure that they only think about it from their perspective and think we need to get the money to keep the team going. The fans are going to be the people that will most likely be willing to help us. I get it. But I think what they're not realising is that they're setting a really bad precedent that could just be a domino effect of something like this. That every single team in the EIHL could potentially do this, and the fans are going to have to foot the bill of a team that, perhaps from no fault of their own, has messed up their finances. You know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I would like to think anyway, and I do think that they have only done this as a last resort.
Which is what they've said, and I hope it's a last resort. That still doesn't make it any better, you know?
No, I mean, the difficulty with ice hockey, of course, is that it is such an expensive sport to play.
Yeah.
It's not football where you buy some £5 shin pads and £10 boots and you're set.
Yeah.
You know, everything is so expensive. And, you know, so there is such a... I mean, I've had it before where, last season at the Lions, there was a game where the gate wasn't enough to pay the referee.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. Yeah,
because the league had set the referee to come up from Bristol and he needed like £400 in kind of mileage and what have you.
Yeah.
So, and when you've got that situation, I think there is a problem with the NIHL in terms of its formats, the way that it's publicised and I won't say necessarily run, but kind of portrayed potentially. And I think it needs looking at because in both leagues, you've got teams from the old English Premier League who have huge budgets. I mean, Hull, for example, the Hull Pirates, have a budget of $4,000 a week.
Yeah.
And then you've got teams in the same league, such as the Lions, who have a budget of $0 a week.
Yeah.
And so something needs looking at, to be honest.
So I think you raise an excellent point. I think because, like we said, this isn't the first time that we've discussed stuff about the lower leagues. Like we've talked about the state of junior hockey, we've talked about the state of the Invicta Dynamos and the MK Thunder now. I think the lower tier leagues in England and the United Kingdom need a massive overhaul. Like there needs to be something done, because we can't have I think we should keep a counter of how many teams do something like this over the next season. Because I mean, we're getting to Christmas now, so you might see a bit of an uptick. What I think the lower league team should do is focus on putting teams in places that aren't near the big arena teams. That just makes common sense to me. You've got to try. Sure, it's a double-edged sword because there might not be as much interest, but then you're not competing. Like, for example, the MK Thunder, to an extent, are competing with the MK Lightning. If you go somewhere where, for example, near me, for example, the closest team that I have is the Chelmsford Chieftains. Okay, so the nearest hockey team to me is the Milton Keynes Lightning. They're at least a 90-minute, 2-hour drive away from me. So if you put teams in places like that, then you're going to have a decent amount of attendance, because people either can't be bothered or can't afford to go really far away to go and see a team play. You know, they've got to focus. In my opinion, they've got to focus on on putting these teams where they aren't in competition with the Elite League. You know.
Yeah, I mean, it
especially
can
the ones
work.
that are struggling.
Yeah, I mean, it can work. The Sheffield Steel Dogs are top of the Northern Division, for example, and obviously they've got the Steelers, but they have a good relationship.
Yeah. And we haven't heard any financial troubles from the Steel Dogs.
No, there aren't any from the Steel Dogs, and it's I mean, so it can work. I mean, the Hull Pirates have a huge fan base because they were formed out of the Hull Stingrays closing. Yeah. That's kind of why they're the favourites of going back into the Elite League.
Yeah.
When the Elite League goes back up to 12, which to me it seems inevitable that they will.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's either going to be something like Hull, or they're going to get something figured out in Murrayfield and keep that going. Whether it's the Capitals,
it's going to be something
races.
Along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be something along those. I'm wondering if I would sway more towards Hull because of the density of teams in Scotland.
Yeah.
Maybe that was why the Capitals.
And also because Hull, they're a tried and tested group. Like you said, $4,000 a week budget. Like they've obviously got a clear, solid financial plan there. Whereas with up in Scotland in Murrayfield, there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And they want a team to join the league for the long haul of 5 to 10 seasons at least, as opposed to having sort of a failed startup project that backs out after 3 seasons.
Yeah, the problem is there is no perfect solution. Like Crocky, your idea there, on the face of it seems fine. When you get into it, you've got you'll end up with leagues that have 5-6 teams in them, and then you're not playing enough to make it worthwhile. Anyway, if there was a perfect solution, they'd have done it. That's the problem. Yeah, because no one is. If there was a perfect solution, it would have happened. Whatever happens, there's going to be problems with it, and that's. I mean, I suppose that's the most for any sport, really. But we're not Canada. We don't have thousands upon thousands of. We've only got about 10,000 registered hockey players. But
it's not a national sport. We can't even get a team on comeback of the year or sports moment of the year.
Oh, don't even get me started on that as well.
Yeah, which I mentioned on Twitter and which Chris actually initially mentioned to me. They will pick. They will pick. Something like netball that only comes, in my opinion, into relevance at the Olympics every 4 years. They will pick that over hockey.
It's at the Commonwealths, because the netball isn't in the Olympics. But
there you go.
Yeah, this is ever so slightly off topic. But for example, Tyson Fury. Yeah. Drew a boxing match. Yes, I know he's come back from all his problems and what have you. But
which is very
admirable. He drew a
hockey
hockey match.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he drew a boxing match.
Yeah.
And it's got onto Moment of the Year, whereas Farmer scoring to send Britain through to the first World Championship since 1994 with 17 seconds to go is just
in
nothing?
A tournament we weren't expected to win or come second. We were just hoping to stay in the competition. You know, like I just find it interesting. So we're going to move away from this topic now. If you have any more questions, we can maybe rehash them towards the end of this, towards the end of the stream when we do audience questions and last call and all that. But yeah, we're kind of starting to. Well, we've gone for over an hour now, so. So we move across the pond once again from the Elite League to the NHL. In terms of teams doing well, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning in first place in the league on a 6-game winning streak. We have a 7-game losing streak for the Chicago Blackhawks in last place now. The LA Kings have finally moved out of last place in the league. They're now 30th. Have 1 game in hand on Chicago, but they both have the same amount of points. Chicago are 9-17-5 so far this season. Perhaps Joel Quenneville wasn't the problem in Chicago. Oh, one of the best coaches of his generation wasn't the problem. What a surprise. The Rangers won a shootout against the Florida Panthers. I stayed up to watch that game. It was a very, very good game. They're playing Tampa Bay tonight. Oh, that's going to go well.
Yep.
So Toronto are in second, which is pretty cool.
Whoop, whoop.
In terms of the, I'll just take a look at the we'll take a look at the divisions just so you guys know what's going on.
Yeah, so I'll get the wild card up just for that clarification.
Yeah, perfect. So Washington are topping the Metro with 37 points. Columbus and the Islanders are taking the other 2 playoff spots with 34 and 31 points respectively. The Atlantic, we have Tampa Bay, like we said, at top, with Toronto and Buffalo taking the second and third. However, Buffalo went on a roughly 5-game losing streak after their 10-game winning streak. I think they've lost 6 out of 7 recently. So Toronto 41 points, Buffalo 38 points. The Western Conference, we have Nashville and Colorado essentially tied for the Central Division, 39 points each, but due to regulation and overtime wins, Nashville takes it. With Winnipeg taking the 3rd spot with 38 points. And in the Pacific Division, we have Calgary topping it with 40 points, and Anaheim and San Jose with 37 and 35 points respectively. So there you go. So
the wild card in the East are the Boston Bruins.
Yep.
On 36 and the Montreal Canadiens on 35. So interestingly, the 2 wildcard spots both have more points than second place in the Metro.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah. The Atlantic Division's been very good so far this season. They've probably been the best division so far this year, albeit maybe for the Central, perhaps?
Yeah. And in the Western Conference, Dallas and Vegas, both on 35, are in those 2 wildcard spots. Interestingly, they are tied with San Jose at the 3rd spot of the Pacific Division, but they both have 1 more regulation and overtime win, so they would potentially get in there
if they were in the Pacific. Yeah.
The
interesting thing is San Jose, for example, Dallas have 1 game in hand on them, and Vegas has played 1 more game than them. Vegas are having a pretty shaky second season, aren't they, in the league? I mean, this is the Vegas Golden Knights that we expected last year. So they're kind of...
In all fairness to them, they're still in a wildcard spot.
Oh yeah, they're still very competitive. They're above 500, so they're doing well for themselves. But this is more the Vegas Golden Knights that we expected when it was announced and when the team was made. So they're still very much in competition for it. They've got Fleury in the net, so he's going to play very well. Just on a side note, did you see that video that came out on Twitter recently? It was from like 4 years ago or something, and it was of Max Domi, of the Montreal Canadiens. It was a video of Max Domi that he basically was doing an interview with somebody, and he was talking about visiting, because he was with the Arizona Coyotes at the time. He was talking about visiting Canada because his dad, of course, Ty Domi, played for the Toronto Maple Leafs for a period of time. He grew up in Toronto for quite a lot of his childhood. He mentions how he loves to spend a lot of time in Toronto, but going through Montreal, he only does day trips because Montreal is trash. He did an interview 4 years ago saying that the city of Montreal is trash. Of course, he's probably changed his opinion considering he's having a career year with the Montreal Canadiens at the moment. I just found that so funny to watch, though. It really is a pure example of stuff you say that gets recorded kind of coming back to bite you in the arse. He kind of became the meme of the day in the hockey world, which I thought was quite funny. So, there you go. Max Domi thinks Montreal is trash. So moving on. Moving on to the the news in the NHL. Of course, the NHL decides to release all of its interesting news literally a couple of hours after we finish our podcast. So, bear with us. So this was announced on December 3rd, exactly a week ago, but it was literally like 30 minutes after we finished the podcast, which was a real pain in the ass. So
it really was.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the Philadelphia Flyers, of course, firing Ron Hextall and asking the question, who's going to be the person that replaces him? Well, 30 minutes after the podcast, we found out. Yeah. So, this is an article released on the NHL website. The Flyers named Chuck Fletcher Executive Vice President and General Manager. So, just in case you don't know who Chuck Fletcher is, this is a multi-year agreement with the Philadelphia Flyers. He's the 9th General Manager in franchise history, and it immediately places him at the day-to-day leader of the club's NHL and minor league hockey operations. Fletcher joins the Flyers with an impressive record of success while at several NHL clubs, including 9 seasons as General Manager of the Minnesota Wild. Over the course of his 25-year career, Fletcher has held senior-level managerial and advisory positions with the New Jersey Devils, which was the job that he was doing before he got hired here, so he only did that for like 20 games, I'm pretty sure. The Minnesota Wild, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, back when they were the Disney team, and the Florida Panthers. He has advanced to the Stanley Cup Finals with 3 different franchises, the Panthers, the Ducks, and the Penguins, and won the Stanley Cup Championship with the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2009. So, he's 51 years old. He was the senior advisor to the general manager. With the New Jersey Devils since the beginning of this season, and he spent 9 seasons with the Minnesota Wild where they did absolutely nothing. They made the playoffs but got beaten by Chicago pretty much every single year. So that's the kind of interesting thing about this. They say he's got a very successful record, that he's a very successful general manager. He hasn't won a cup in 9 years, sorry. Which, of course, it's a competitive situation. You could also argue that he kind of had some of the best players of his generation in Pittsburgh with him. I don't know how long he was the GM in Pittsburgh. I don't quite have that information off the top of my head. His most recent work, of course, is with the Minnesota Wild. He's spent quite a long time with the Minnesota Wild. He spent 8 seasons, in fact, with the Minnesota Wild, where he got that job just after Pittsburgh won the Cup, which was part of his doing. They didn't do very much when he was the GM there. They made the playoffs. I don't think they ever made it past the second round, from what I'm aware of, in 8 seasons. So, do I think this is the right signing? Have they signed a guy that's experienced and knows how to make a competitive team? Yes. Have they signed a guy that knows how to make a Stanley Cup champion? Yes, but 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I think the important thing with that Cup Championship is he was the assistant general manager there.
There you go.
Not the general manager.
So he wasn't the guy running the show.
He's been general manager at Minnesota alongside executive vice president of hockey operations.
Yeah.
And then he's been assistant general manager at Pittsburgh.
Yep.
He was assistant general manager at the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim.
Right.
And he was the general manager at Florida for a season. General manager at the Louisville Panthers in the AHL for 2 seasons.
Right.
So his only general manager's roles are 2 years in the AHL.
So he obviously worked his way up through the Florida Panthers system.
Yeah. So he was assistant general manager in Florida between 93 and 2000.
Okay.
As well as being general manager at Louisville. Then he had 1 year as the general manager at Florida. And then he had... What
year was that he was the general manager of Florida?
2001, 2002, because he was assistant general to start with. Then he succeeded Bill Torrey in the 3rd of December.
Yeah, essentially they fired him and replaced him. So okay.
So and then he was only assistant general manager at the Mighty Ducks and at Pittsburgh, and then the general manager again at Minnesota. So he's only been a general manager pretty much at Minnesota. Which,
like we said, he didn't really have a huge amount of success with. So, in fairness, he has got I'd argue a better roster in Philadelphia than what he had in Minnesota. Of course, he very much molded that team in Minnesota, and quite a lot of that is his doing. But he's got Voracek, Giroux, Simmons. Nolan Patrick is having a bit of an off year, but it's sophomore slump. It can be expected. Provorov, Gostisbehere. Their goaltending sucks, but other than that, I mean, if Chuck Fletcher can finally sort out the goaltending problem in Philadelphia, I will consider his job. I'll consider it a job well done. I think anything that happens from then, he's done a great job, because their goaltending there sucks. However, they do have one of the highest like up and coming prospects in the goaltending position, so I kind of feel like this is an example of Chuck Fletcher essentially taking the work that Ron Hextall has done and essentially, if they do anything well, getting the credit for it, which of course happens in hockey, happens in sports in general. They're obviously just looking for that general manager that can either make the right moves, draft the right players, or bring in the right personnel to tip them over the edge and make them a Stanley Cup contender. In terms, do you have the standings of the NHL?
Yeah.
I got rid of them. Where do the Flyers sit at the moment? Just out of curiosity.
They are, well, second bottom in the East in a sense when you consider compared to the wild card.
So yeah,
they're second bottom.
It's definitely an example of the team. The team have definitely underperformed from the expectations that they had last season. Like, that's without a doubt, and I can understand why Hextall was the scapegoat for that. However, what a lot of the Philadelphia Flyers fans have been saying is Ron Hextall wasn't the problem. It's their awful coach in Dave Haxtell. So Chuck Fletcher has been given free rein to do what he wants with Haxtell, essentially, and I think he's keeping him, at least for this season. So we'll have to see what happens there. We'll have to see how the team does at the end of the season. If they do carry on and end as one of the bottom teams in the East, I would definitely say it's a coach thing and not a general manager thing, because they have a great set of players there. They're just not being utilised the way they should be by the looks of it. So, yeah. Chuck Fletcher, the new Flyers general manager. Anything else you want to add on that before we move on?
No, not really, to be honest.
Perfect. So, the last piece of news we will cover today also came like a couple of hours after we finished the stream. You can tell it's been quite a slow news week. There's been a couple of suspensions and all that, and
we're not going into all those.
Ryan Reeves slapping Tom Wilson a couple of times, which, I mean, I like to think I'm a neutral observer of hockey most of the time. I don't like it when players get injured or go off the ice injured, but you live by the sword, Tom Wilson, you die by the sword. So,
true.
I mean, he's done it to plenty of other players.
Very true.
Eventually it catches up to you, and Ryan Reeves kind of became the poster boy of NHL fans for a night, which was very interesting. Didn't get suspended, which I'm kind of happy about, gotta be honest. So, anyway, December 5th, this article was written by ESPN. It's the first one I could find, so I'm using this one.
Fair.
So, the NHL, there's been a lot of talk. There was a Board of Governors meeting recently. The prime topic that they were going to talk about on the ballot was the Seattle expansion, whether they were actually going to go ahead with expanding the NHL to Seattle, and to nobody's surprise, it was confirmed. It has been given the all clear, the green light. The NHL will add a franchise in Seattle. They announced it on Tuesday, sorry, not Monday, so it's not. It was a day after our podcast. So following a unanimous vote by the Board of Governors, so everybody thinks it's a good idea, the league's 32nd NHL team will play in the Pacific Division and will be Seattle's first winter sports franchise since the NBA Supersonics left for Oklahoma City in 2008. So I believe what they're planning to do is tear down the arena where the Supersonics used to play, and they're putting up a new arena. A new grand spanking lovely arena. All in all, including the costs, the membership cost and the expansion cost, this team is going to cost over $1 billion to join the NHL, including its including building the arena and everything. So
yeah,
I mean, it's a lot of money. They are definitely committing. You can say whatever you want about Gary Bettman. He's good at expanding the league and getting money out of teams that want, or cities that want teams to play there. So this ESPN article does a very good job of answering a few questions. So when will the team start playing in the NHL? Provided everything goes to plan, they're looking to play in the 21-22 NHL season. So they won't be playing next year. They'll be playing in, what, 3 years time?
Yeah. So not next season. Not this season, not next season, the season after.
Yeah, perfect. So the budget for the renovations of their arena has reached $800 million. Jesus Christ. What's the team name going to be? We don't know yet. They haven't given an exact name. There's been a lot of different names thrown about.
Let us know in the comments what you think it should be.
Yeah, well, what do you think the Seattle franchise should be called? We've got the Seattle Cougars, the Eagles. I like the Seattle Emeralds. I think that's quite nice.
I reckon it should be Seattle McSeattle Face.
I love it. They've also talked about the Seattle Totems, because that has a lot of significance, historical significance around Seattle. Another mention that I saw was some people are wanting Seattle to take on the Whalers and become the new Hartford Whalers. Of course, what turned into the Carolina Hurricanes. I'm not sure that makes sense. They're the complete opposite side of the country, so I don't know. So there's that.
They'll come up with something.
Yeah, we'll find out eventually. They've got a little while, so we'll figure it out. Will they use the same expansion draft rules as the expansion draft with Vegas this last year or so? Yes, they're using the exact same rules, according to Gary Bettman. He stated several times that the new franchise will benefit from the same expansion draft rules that the Golden Knights used. Even after Vegas made a surprising run to the Stanley Cup Finals, Bettman said in May that he has received no pushback whatsoever from other owners about using the same process. However, how teams make a strategy for that might be a lot different. They might not give up so much stuff in order to avoid giving up a certain player. Several teams were victim of that, and the players that got sent in those trades were very key pieces to their Stanley Cup Final run. So, who is building the team? Like, where's it all coming from? So there's 30 members in the ownership group, nearly 30 members in this ownership group. The number one majority owner is investment banker David Bonderman, and the person right behind him is Hollywood producer Jerry Bruckheimer. So if you're into films, you might recognise that name. He's forking a lot of money over for it, so it's very, very cool. And how is the NHL going to realign the divisions to accommodate another team in the Pacific? So yes, the Seattle team is going into the Pacific Division, and they've decided that the Arizona Coyotes will move to the Central Division when the season that the Seattle franchise comes into the league. However, I've heard some talk around that saying that the league said that and they didn't they didn't discuss it with the Players Association and everything like that. I don't know whether that's true or not. That's hearsay from me at the moment. However, they have they told Arizona about this a long time in advance, so I assume it will be okay. And of course, that also the Arizona Coyotes having a tough time themselves, that might lead to a move to Houston, for example, which have been highly rumored to be in the market for an NHL team. And then they talk about what's next for expansion, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. So yes, a team coming to Seattle. What do you think, Chris?
I mean, as you said, it was no surprise because the league had to get to 32 because 31 is just the same as the Elite League being 11 is just awkward.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
It also made sense, obviously, being over on the western side because they have the division that only has 7 in it, not 8.
Yep.
So everything makes sense, and it wasn't a surprise to anybody.
And plus, Seattle's been looking for a major sports franchise for God knows how long, since the Supersonics left.
Since the Supersonics left about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like I say, I mean, it's the news everybody was expecting.
Yep.
The realignment, obviously, someone had to go from the Pacific into the Central. I'm kind of looking forward now to what 2020, 2021. So.
Yeah, I think the expansion draft will be interesting because.
Because Vegas aren't involved. Don't forget.
What's that?
Vegas aren't involved in it.
That's a good point.
So
that's a good point.
Vegas Golden Knights don't give up any players. It comes from the other 30 teams, but then Vegas get no money from it either.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, and this is purely from a New York Rangers fan perspective, this is just the first thought that I had when I was thinking about the expansion draft. Their goaltending situation is going to be very interesting because they've got two goaltenders, Alexander Georgiev and Igor Sestyorkin, who are looking like pretty solid up-and-coming goaltenders, but they've also got Henrik Lundqvist there, who has a no-movement clause and everything like that. I could very well imagine they have a... You know how the Pittsburgh Penguins were like with the Vegas expansion draft? where they had to choose between Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury. I very much see that being the scenario here for the New York Rangers. That was just something I thought of. But like I mentioned, I think teams will be a lot more passive in what they do with their moves. Because, of course, they can make trades. They can make offers to Seattle to go, we will give you all of this stuff if you either don't pick this player or pick a certain player. So there are those deals that took place during the Vegas expansion. I will be very interested to see if teams actually make those moves. There'll be, of course, some decent players that get exposed in the draft because there's not enough players that you can keep. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting. Of course, it's going to be one of those things that we've heard a lot about now, going, yeah, they're getting an NHL team, and then 2 years will go by really quick, and we'll go, oh shit, yeah, like there's an NHL team coming. I completely forgot about this because we've been so busy focusing on the actual league and not what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I saw a really funny comment or a thread when NHL 19 were like, welcome to the NHL, Seattle. We'll see you in 2021 or whatever they did, and people were like, just wait for them to reskin the expansion mode from NHL 18 and say it's a new mode in the game. Yeah, pretty much.
Play as the new 32nd team or create your own 33rd team.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to play some NHL 19 yesterday, but then it needed an update and I couldn't be asked. So that's my interest in EA Sports.
That's how bad EA Sports as NHL has gotten, has it? 2K, get on NHL.
I literally play them every year and I'm so bored of this one. Like, I hate playing it. It's so boring. Anyway.
Based on NBA 2K being way better than NBA Live from EA, 2K need to get on NHL because that would probably be incredible.
Yeah, the only thing that's killing the 2K series is their egregious microtransactions.
There is that. That's the problem.
And the way they treat their fan base. But other than that, like, the games themselves are solid. They just don't need to be such a grind for microtransaction stuff. But anyway, that's the NHL news. Let us know what you think in the chat and all that. We move on to Brits Abroad. Da-da-ba-ba, Kirk's Corner. Right, Chris, give us the stats, please, my boy.
So, Liam Kirk is 8 plus 8 for 16 from 30 games, 1 plus 1 for 2 from his 2 games this week since last Monday's podcast. Scoring on the power play with 0.7 seconds to go in the second period against the Hamilton Bulldogs on Thursday. It was a very nice goal.
Nice, perfect. So Kirky's doing very well for himself. Yep. He's going just over a point every other game.
He is, and this week he is. So this week he has got the Flint Firebirds on Friday.
Okay.
The Guelph Storm on Saturday, and the Ottawa 67s on Sunday.
They recently played the 67s and they lost. Yeah, they lost 3.
But Kirky got an assist. 4-2.
4-2.
4-2.
Awesome. Okay, so that's what happened with Kirk's Corner. He's starting to find his form. I could very much imagine after Christmas he's going to start tearing it up.
Probably.
So, what about Tomo's DEL adventure, Chris?
Tomo's not had a great week, I'm not going to lie. He has played 2, lost 2. He's now 4-5-0 from his 9 games in charge and has lost 4 straight.
Well, that's not good. I finally downloaded Flash Scores. Chris has converted me to Flash Scores now. The one thing I don't like about it is it tells me when... I was watching the Rangers game recently, and it was telling me goals had been scored before I got to see them on the live stream.
Yes, you do have to. Like either mute your phone and not look at it, or turn them off if you're actually watching the game.
Yeah.
I used to have it. I used to have it with my football text alerts because I'd be watching the game streamed on Sky, and my phone would go, "Nottingham Forest have scored," and I go, "Have they?" And then 10 seconds later, they score.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, other than that, it's really good. I've got as one of the sort of like my favoured teams, the Svinegar Wild Wings, and I got like 3 notifications in the space of about 5 minutes of the team, I think it was the Bremen team or something, or Bremager. They went 3-0 up in that game, and I was like, oh, well, looks like they've lost that game.
Yeah, basically, that's kind of what happens.
But SK St. Petersburg won today, so I'm happy. Pavel Datsuk scored a goal as well, which was nice. Anyway.
you'll find the Elite League on it is really good, because the notification will come up on the Elite League before it comes up on Twitter.
Yes, I do like that. I did notice that this last weekend, and I was very happy with that until it said that the Panthers lost. But anyway, so fantasy hockey. So we didn't look at this in too much detail last week.
I was almost about to do a jingle for fantasy hockey, then realised in my head it was exactly the same as Kirk's Corner.
Well, do it. Go for it.
Do fantasy.
I love it. Perfect. So the fantasy scores look a little bit like this. We have, of course, Mr. Chris Gadsby still undefeated. He decided
not after this week, though.
It's pure luck. Absolute pure luck. The fact that
I'm not even joking. Going into the weekend, I was down by 2 points. Then on Saturday, I scored 27 points, and Denver Sports team got 2 points, and all of a sudden I was 25 points in front with like 4 players going.
It's just not fair, is it? I'm having a look at your team now.
You beat me this week as well.
I'm going to show you their roster so you know what's going on. So he's got Pasternak, he's got Point, you have Mike Hoffman, who went on like an 18-game point streak, for goodness sake. No wonder you've been doing so well.
Yeah.
Then
I've got Jake DeBrusque as well, but he's on day-to-day. I've got Chris Tierney.
He's got Nylander, but he hasn't got a point yet. I mean, just so you know, the Maple Leafs have lost every single game since Nylander's been in the lineup.
I know.
And you got Pecorino and Ben Bishop. Like, that's just not fair, man.
That's because I picked Pasternak in round 1, and then I picked Ryan in round 2 because I knew that I needed a good goaltender, and I got one.
So it's a good call. It's a very good call. So anyway, in just slight news, Bobby Ryan's gone down for ages with a concussion, so I got him out of my lineup, put in Pontus Aberg.
Nice.
Thought I'd mention that.
Who did I put in today? Because I got rid of Matt Cullen because he was doing nothing.
I did see that you'd got rid of him, actually. Yeah.
Because he'd done absolute... I put in Edmonton guy. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. Begins with C.
Chason.
That's the one.
Chason. Yeah, I think he's playing on a line with McDavid, so that's a good idea. Anyway, so I beat Habsuck last week, 110 points to 32. That was a
top of the league this week.
Yeah, it was good. Max's Nottingham Outlaws beat the Pyongyang Sucklords, love it, 106 to 83. The Yeet beat the Yelnuts 54 to 49. That's two people that haven't been paying attention. The Dungeon PlayStations beat the Toronto Thunderbirds 100 to 95. Now that sounded like a good situation. The Croatian Jets beat the Red Hawks 63 to 59. Chris cheated and won 106 to 84. The Shaw Billionaires beat the Portsmouth Pirates 101 to 62. And Trump's fake wife beat the Beanheads 91 to 67. In terms of this week, what have we got going on this week, Oddman Rush? Well, let me tell you, ladies and gents.
That's going to be good.
What's that?
Me versus Max.
Oh, yeah, that'll be a good one. So I'm up against the Duncan PlayStations. I'm 7-3-0. He's 4-5-0. Max against Chris. Come on, Max. Get it done, son.
Yeah, come on, Max.
We've got the Yeet against the Shaw Billionaires. We've got the Habs Suck against Trump's fake wife. We've got the Croatian Jets against the Sucklords. Denver against Yelnuts. Portsmouth Pirates against the Thunderbirds. And the Beanheads against Clarkie's Infants. With the Nottingham Redhawks taking the bye week this week. So do they go... Oh, they do go over... Why would they have a week going over Christmas? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, nobody plays then.
What do you mean?
Week 14...
Yeah.
Week 13 is December 24th to December 30th.
Oh, that's my bye week.
Oh, well, lucky you. So, yeah, that's the fantasy news today. Unfortunately, all the spots have been filled. You can't join the Fantasy League. We did it way at the beginning of the season, just before the NHL season began. So there isn't any way of joining it, although we would like more active players to take part in it. Sort out your lineups, you idiots. Come on. Like, even if you're not watching this, go sort it out. So, yeah. That is the news this week, I guess. We're about 90 minutes in. We'll take a question or two. Chris has got to shoot off soon. So, if you've got a question on anything that we've mentioned or anything that we haven't mentioned and you want us to talk about in more detail, while we wait for any questions, put them in the chat, by the way. Do let us know what you think. I've got another video coming out tonight. I'm blessing you with 2 different pieces of media today, which is great. We've got the podcast, and it's one of my more reaction videos, my reaction commentary style videos, which you guys seem to really like, as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream. Like, you guys seem to really enjoy it, which I loved. I mean, it's compared to sort of the average video on my channel, it just did really well, actually. Did really well. It's like got triple the amount of views, so I'm very happy with it. This one, I've done a lot more editing stuff, a lot more stupid, ridiculous stuff. There's one little clip in it, because Chris saw the last one, and he noticed that I had the green screen behind me, and he wanted me to do something a bit more with the green screen. I spent a little while, like, seeing what I could do with it, and it's just like a 2-second clip in it, which makes me kill myself with laughter every single time. If you guys don't enjoy it, that's absolutely fine. I enjoyed it, and that's all that matters.
Is this going to be like a cringe laugh?
No.
Okay.
It makes sense in the moment, and it's stupid in the moment, but it's kind of like, yeah, it's good. All right, makes sense. I'll give you a bit of a hint. It's to do with something that happened in the KHL this last few weeks, the last few days, I should say. I'm not going to go into too much detail other than that. Watch the video.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Yeah, exactly. Spoiler alert. Any questions? Give you about another minute. I spent plenty of time talking to myself, so gave you ample time to put in a question in the chat. If you don't have any questions, that's fine. It's fine. Just give us a question. Just give us a question. So Chris, just while we wait for a little bit, I finally bought my subscription to Premiere Pro.
Yes, you did.
Premiere Pro. It's the new editing software I've been using, thanks to Chris's suggestion. I love it. It's literally a fantastic editing software. It's like 20 quid a month, which, I mean, if I'm making videos most days on it, pays for itself, really. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
Here's a good question. Do you think Ben Bounds has dropped in quality this year? Go for it, Chris.
I've not seen Cardiff, so I can't really comment too much.
Could you find his stats for us, just quickly?
I can do, yeah. I'll just answer Crocky's as well, who says, will we do more NIHL stuff? We mention them every week.
Yeah, we do pretty much mention them every week.
We do talk about the NIHL every week. So, of course, I work in it, commentate on it. So, yeah, do mention it every week.
And also, because quite a lot of our debate topics go on about the NIHL or British hockey as a whole, and they get mentioned in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, who are new to the podcast, we talk about the Elite League, and then we have a section called Play Under Review, which is our debate topic, which was what we were talking about, the MK Thunder, and their financial woes, as it were, this week. So feel free to go watch all the old podcasts. We've only missed 1 week, which was a couple of weeks ago, because I was off having fun in Switzerland. It was great. I loved it. Do you want to see the hockey puck that I got? Yeah, that's the hockey puck that I got. Stan actually got it out of its bloody packaging. I've been thinking, like, do I make a video on all the stuff that I got? And then I've had other stuff I wanted to make, and I couldn't be asked. So it's sat in its original packaging.
In terms of Bouncy's stats, just to finish off.
Go for it.
The stats aren't really that bad, to be honest. So last season, when everyone kind of went, said he was on fire and all the rest of it, goals against average of 2.43 and a save percentage of 0.912.
Okay.
This season, halfway through, goals against of 2.63 and a save percentage of 0.910. So 0.2 more goals this season and a 0.002 worse save percentage. So the stats say he's kind of the same.
Yeah, so he's obviously taken a bit of a drop compared to last year. I mean, to be fair, a 0.4 change in goals against average can be the difference between being a great goaltender and a good goaltender in the league. Like, that stuff is noticeable. Clearly, he's not playing as well as last season yet, in a smaller sample size. Has he dropped from last year? Yeah, I think it's fair to say that he's dropped off a little bit. But then again, the quality of his play was so high last year that there wasn't really much wiggle room to be had.
There is that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like such high expectations to live up to, even if you drop off a small, like, a hair of what you had last season, which he has, only a small difference. Like, there isn't really a huge amount, like you said. Talking like 0.1 save percentage and 0.4 goals against average. So, yeah, I think it was very... I think he's doing okay. He's clearly doing the job that Cardiff need of him, because they could essentially tie for first place in the league once they catch up on games on hand. So I think they'll be okay. I think Ben Bounds, unless he completely falls off a cliff with his stats the next half of the season, I think he'll carry on being a solid goaltender.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that, I think we shall end this week's episode of the Icing on the Skate podcast. For those of you that are new or haven't watched it before, we do this every Monday evening at 7 p.m. So make sure you tune in at that time, Monday at 7 p.m, to watch the episodes live on YouTube. We always put a tweet out on Twitter. Go and follow either myself or Chris on Twitter. Twitter handles are there if you want to go and know when we go live. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Check out my video at 10 p.m. tonight. It's only, 2.5 hours away? An hour and a half away. Do it. It's going to be a great video. I hope you guys enjoy it. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Please feel free to like, subscribe, share, watch some of my other videos. Thank you very much for watching. But for now, goodbye.